A 4-0 thrashing for Forest. They've lost 5 in a row now, conceded 18 goals during that time as well. Steve Cooper, who works miracles last season in the Championship, taking him out of the relegation zone and into the Premier League. He's under serious pressure now. But has he been set up to fail? Let's take a look at the fixture on odd alerts, and you can see the pressure monitor here. It's one-way traffic, so to speak. And Forest had a little bit of pressure towards the end, but too little too late. If we look at the last 5 games for Forest, conceded 3.6 goals per game. They've failed to score in 60% of games. If we just toggle to all quickly, failed to score is still 50%, so they're not scoring enough goals, and they're leaking goals. I looked at the lineup briefly before, and Steve Cook's name stands out to me. He's clearly not good enough for the Premier League. He was a good Premier League player with Bournemouth, but I think he'll admit it himself, and I think, coming into the Premier League, he probably thought he'd be a bit part player, especially when you look at the players that they've brought in. Just before we take a look at Forest's summer signings, it might take a while, a word on Leicester. I'm glad they got that win. This is a game you would have expected them to win regardless of the current form and situation that they find themselves in. Brendan Rodgers is a good manager, and I tweeted a few times about betting against, when you can bet on the next manager to be sacked, bet against Brendan Rodgers being the next manager, because he was 1.57. And this is before Tuchel was sacked, this is before Bruno Lage was sacked. Leicester are down there, but why would you sack Brendan Rodgers? Because you're not going to find anybody better for Leicester than Brendan Rodgers. Who are you going to bring in? Realistically, is it going to be Pochettino? It's got to be someone of that ilk, really. Thomas Tuchel is available. But unless you've got somebody like that ready to go, you shouldn't sack Rodgers, because he's still a good manager, and it's clear that the players are still playing for him. Players like Tielemans have stuck around. They've not had the best of summers in terms of the transfer window. That's not Rodgers' fault. That's not the players' fault. So I'm glad they've got this win. Hopefully they can kick on now. If you're a Forest fan, you're bottom of the table now, and we can just quickly look at their results as well. It's not good, is it? The only win coming against West Ham, who at that point hadn't scored a Premier League goal. The results here, when you look at them, it's Fulham, it's Bournemouth. Those defeats, conceding 3 as well, especially to Bournemouth. They've lost to Newcastle, they've drawn with Everton. There's teams in the Premier League who have had much more difficult starts in terms of the fixture list, Bournemouth included, who might now have started to pick up points now. Whereas Forest, they might be looking at the fixtures and thinking, where are we going to pick up points? They need to get the team right. They need to start playing with a bit of consistency, using the new signings that they've made, which leads me on to looking at them. You can see Steve Cooper there above my head. He's under serious pressure now. Worked wonders last year, but I think he's been set up to fail a little bit, just in that these signings are not all his signings. I think that's obvious. I think there's been some agents coming to the owners of the club. You can sign this guy, this guy's available. And some of these players, by the way, were wanted by other teams, bigger teams, with respect to Forest, teams that have been established in the Premier League. So they are, on paper, good signings, but you've still got to have a bit of balance, and you can't just, if you've already got a centre mid or 4 centre mids, don't just sign another couple just because they're better players or just because they're available. You've got to think about the team chemistry. I'm not trying to ultimate team it, but it's true. Emmanuel Dennis, I think he should start. I mean, if you're buying these players, fit them in. But that's the problem. If you've got Gibbs White, you've got Lingard, who wants to play every game, and maybe his contract and his wages demand that he plays every game. If you've signed players and you've given them certain guarantees, or the owner or the agents have given them certain guarantees, I understand that they lost some players last year, or they had some players on loan that they weren't able to get again, like Garner, but still you have to manage it well when you've got so many players incoming. Josh Bowler signed and then sent on loan. I don't understand that at all. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a biased Blackpool fan who misses him, and we haven't won, and we've lost the last 3. We just can't create. I'm not biased at all. There's a bit of a curious case of Biancone here, the French player signed from Troyes. He played against City, and that was his sort of only chance. He came on for 11 minutes. But he's played a bunch of under-21 games, Carabao Cup. But you look at Ligue 1 last season, he played pretty much every game. And he's a right back, and they paid 9 million for him. They've also got Neco Williams, who you would have thought is their main right back, right wing back. So unless they change system when Neco Williams gets pushed up, but then of course you're pushing other players out of the team. Gibbs White, Lingard, Johnson on that right side. This is why I think some of these players have been signed outside of Steve Cooper's guidance, or you know, he's not signed off on all of the players. That's a curious one. Dennis, I don't think he started yet. He was on the bench again last night. He was great for Watford. He was their top scorer. He was kind of the only scorer for Watford when they went down. You paid 13 million for him. He should be playing, really. Neco Williams there, 18 million. So if they're going off price, I guess Neco Williams just gets in ahead of the young French player, right? One thing I'll say as well is that you've got to have a bit of sympathy with injury record here, because Niakate, Omar Richards, and there was another one, Mangala. So yeah, 11 million from Stuttgart. Omar Richards, really exciting left back from Bayern Munich, but he was never going to get in ahead of Davies. So yeah, good move for him, I think, but really unlucky that he picks up an injury after signing. So you've got 3 players there that could potentially come in and make the team better. But the centre-backs, I want to talk about the centre-backs. Niakate is a centre-back, he's 26. Willy Bowley, signed from Wolves. Surely he's better than Steve Cook. I look at Steve Cook, and again, it's nothing personal, Steve. I doubt that you're ever going to watch this video, but I'm sure some of the Forest fans will agree. He just looks off it. He just looks slow. He looked a bit slow when Bournemouth went down, right? And he's still here in the Premier League. I just think he's past his sell-by date in terms of being a Premier League player. That's not, you know, people do it. Everybody expires, right? I just think you've signed these players. Why are they not playing? Why are you not getting him in the team? Will Steve Cooper be the next manager to leave his post in the Premier League? I say leave, it's going to be a sacking, isn't it? If and when he does go. He's got a massive 3 games. They've got Aston Villa, Wolves and Brighton. So they're at home to Villa on Tuesday, the 11th of October. And then they've got Wolves away, and then they've got Brighton away as well. So they are not easy games, especially away at Wolves and Brighton. Bear in mind, Wolves will have a new manager in by that time. And Brighton, well, you saw what they were like at Liverpool. I think that's a good appointment there for Brighton. And obviously the players are still confident from their time with Potter. Forest at home to Villa, Tuesday, 11th of October. I think if he loses that, if Gerrard goes there and gets a victory, then it's goodbye for Steve Cooper, unfortunately, because I think if he was able to do everything the way he wanted to do, I think some of the players that they've signed, they might still have signed them, but they wouldn't have signed the other players as well. I mean, it's like, you know, they signed Dennis quite late, didn't they? Good signing, but I think if they'd have got him in a few weeks earlier, or at the start of the transfer window, the whole business of the front end of the pitch might have been different as well. I think they've just got too many players up there. And then they've not signed enough quality at the back as well. You can't still be playing Steve Cook when they're conceding goals for fun against teams like Bournemouth, right? And against Leicester as well, who have been shot for confidence over the past few weeks. So it's not looking good. Ultimately, it's his job to manage the players he has, but you would hope managers in this day and age have a say and have a close relationship with the board and the owners. But it doesn't seem to be that way with Steve Cooper. And as you can imagine, he's favourite to be the next manager to be sacked in the Premier League. So can Steve Cooper turn it around? Can he save his job? They've got the players, they've got the squad, but a tricky time for them so far in the Premier League. Let me know what you think in the comments. Will they survive? How will they do in those 3 games that I mentioned before? Thanks for watching and enjoy.